I was just passing by my daughter-in-law Alicia's house that afternoon, nothing unusual, just a quiet drive to drop off a couple of toys for my granddaughter, Isla. The sun was out, the wind a little crisp, and my heart, it was heavy, as it always was when I passed that house. The same house where my son Michael died. But what I saw that day made me slam the brakes so hard the tires squealed. Alicia, she was dragging trash bags from the garage, forcefully, like she was angry at the garbage itself. I ducked behind the steering wheel, watching from across the street. I didn't want her to see me. She hadn't let me see Isla in weeks, not even a picture. Then my heart froze. There it was, the blanket. That soft, mint-green blanket I had knitted with trembling hands, stitch by stitch, months before Isla was born. I knew it instantly. The edge was hanging out of a black garbage bag, half crushed by old magazines and what looked like spoiled leftovers. It looked like someone had stomped on it. She stuffed it deeper into the bag, shoved it into the dumpster, slammed the lid shut like she wanted it to vanish. I couldn't breathe. That blanket, it was everything. I made it with love, for Michael's child. Michael adored it. He used to say it was magic, that Isla stopped crying every time she was wrapped in it. That blanket was part of him. Part of her. Part of us. Why would Alicia throw it away like that? I waited until she disappeared inside. I couldn't move at first, my hands were trembling, my throat dry. Then I got out of the car and rushed across the street like a woman possessed. My shoes crunched on gravel as I reached the dumpster. The smell of old food, rotting leaves, and something sour hit me like a wave, but I didn't care. I opened the lid. My hands dug through the sticky mess. My fingers clutched something soft, and then I had it. The blanket. Dirty, crumpled, smelling faintly of Alicia's perfume and something else I couldn't place. I pressed it against my chest and staggered back, tears already welling in my eyes. I drove home in silence, the blanket clutched tight in my lap like it might vanish if I let go. I didn't even take off my coat when I got inside. I locked the door, dropped my bag on the floor, and carried the blanket straight to my bedroom like I was carrying Michael himself. I laid it out carefully on the bed. The light from my bedside lamp cast a pale glow over it. The color was faded now, but it was still that same soft green. I smoothed the fabric with my hand, and then, my fingers caught on something. There was a bump. A hard lump right in the center. My breath caught. It wasn't part of the original blanket. I would have known. I made every stitch. I knitted every loop. This felt wrong. Like something had been inserted. My fingers brushed the seam. It was too perfect, almost invisible. But I could feel it, someone had sewn something inside, something small and solid. I stood up abruptly. My knees wobbled. My sewing scissors. I had kept them all these years, the same ones I used to trim the edges when I made this very blanket. I opened my nightstand drawer and grabbed them with shaking hands. I sat on the edge of the bed. My heart thudded so loud it echoed in my ears. Slowly, gently, I began to snip through the stitches at the bottom of the blanket. One thread at a time. The sound of each cut echoed in the silent room like a scream. And then, the seam opened. My fingers reached in, cautious, uncertain, and touched something cold. Something metallic. I pulled it out with trembling hands. It was a phone. Small. Black. Off. My mouth went dry. A phone? Why would Alicia hide a phone inside a baby blanket? My mind spiraled with questions. What was this? How long had it been in there? Who put it there? Why now? Why throw it away? Why hide it in something so innocent? I stared at the object in my hands like it might explode. Whatever this phone held, it had been buried in silence for a reason. And I was about to dig up the past. What I would discover on that phone would not only shatter my heart, it would uncover a truth darker than anything I could have imagined, a truth that would force me to relive the day my son died, in a whole new light. I found an old charger in the back of my dresser drawer, the kind you never throw out, even when the device is long gone. My hands were trembling as I plugged the phone into the wall, the black screen still lifeless in my palm. It didn't turn on. I waited, my breathing shallow, one hand clutched over my chest. Seconds ticked by like years. Just as I began to think the phone was too old, too broken, a faint flicker lit up the corner of the screen. Oh God. It was charging. I don't remember how long I sat there, 5 minutes, 10, maybe more, staring at that dim glow as if it held the answers to all my pain. And when the screen finally lit up fully, my heart slammed against my ribs. No lock screen. No code. Just open. Like it had been waiting for me. I stared at the home screen, my fingers hovering like the phone might bite me. There were only a few apps. Messages. Gallery. Notes. Contacts. I went to the gallery first. I don't know why. Something about the idea of seeing pictures, faces, it made the fear more tangible. My thumb tapped the icon. The screen opened. Thumbnails of photos appeared in neat little rows. My blood ran cold. The first one was Alicia. She was smiling, sitting in a dimly lit restaurant. Candles on the table. A glass of red wine. And next to her, a man. Not Michael. Younger. Stylish. Handsome. His arm wrapped around her, lips pressed against her cheek as she giggled like a teenager. No. No, no, no. I stared at the date on the photo. For years ago. When she and Michael were still married. When she was pregnant. When they were painting Isla's nursery. I gasped, clamping my hand over my mouth as the tears came without warning. Hot, bitter, shameful. I kept swiping through the pictures. One after the other after the other. Her and that same man, at the beach. In a hotel room. In a car, kissing like teenagers. It felt like a knife slowly twisting in my chest. Michael had no idea. He was in love with her. He trusted her. He gave her his heart. And she was already tearing it apart behind his back. Then I found the videos. I didn't want to watch. I had to. The first one was shaky. A living room. Their living room. I recognized the gray couch Michael used to nap on after long shifts. The painting he bought me for Mother's Day, hanging crookedly on the wall. And then Alicia appeared. With him. Laughing. Hands all over each other. Falling onto the couch. His mouth on her neck. Her moaning softly. I dropped the phone as if it burned me. A sound escaped my throat, something between a sob and a growl. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't believe what I was seeing. They'd been together under his roof. In his home. In his life. He was saving lives at the hospital, and she was killing his behind his back. I sat on the edge of the bed, numb. But the truth wasn't done with me yet. Not even close. With trembling hands, I opened the Messages app. There were long conversations with someone saved only as H. My stomach churned. I started reading. At first, it was romantic. Complaints about Michael, about how he doesn't get me, about how cold their marriage was. Then it escalated. I want to be with you. I'm tired of pretending. Michael would never agree to a divorce. I can't keep living like this. There has to be another way. I blinked at the screen, unable to process what I was reading. Another way? And then, a message that cracked something deep inside me. I need him to disappear. The phone slipped from my fingers. I shook. Physically shook. I read it again and again. My brain screamed no, but my eyes wouldn't lie. My body started to rock back and forth, like the grief was so heavy it had to move somewhere. What was I looking at? I picked up the phone again, scrolled further. Don't say crazy things. Just wait. We'll find a way. But she wouldn't let it go. I'm done waiting. Michael is the problem. If he weren't here, we'd be free. Then, a message dated 1 week before Michael's death. Tuesday. 3 p.m. He'll be alone. It has to look natural. An accident. No one can suspect. The walls around me blurred. I couldn't see straight. My son hadn't just fallen down the stairs. He hadn't slipped. He had been hunted. Planned. Erased. Everything went black for a moment. I don't even remember collapsing, only the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears like war drums. And just when I thought I couldn't take any more, that I had already seen the worst, the phone revealed one more name, one more person tied to Alicia. A man I had never met, but whose face would haunt me forever. The room was silent, but inside me, there was a storm. I sat clutching that phone like it was a bomb that had already gone off. My son, my boy Michael, his death hadn't been a tragic accident. It had been orchestrated. Scripted like a scene in a horror film, but this wasn't fiction. I needed air, but I couldn't move. I opened the contacts. The man in those photos, the one who had kissed Alicia's cheek, who had wrapped his arms around her in the very house my son paid for, was saved only as H. No last name. Just that single, mocking letter. I scrolled back through their messages, eyes dry now from too many tears shed already. My chest burned. I talked to someone. Someone who can help us. Just trust me. Soon we'll be free. Free? From what? A marriage to a man who loved her? A life full of comfort, a daughter, a home? And then, the messages stopped. Exactly 7 days before Michael's death. I didn't need to be a detective to connect the dots. Alicia had someone help her. H, whoever he wasn't just a fling. He was part of this. Maybe the one who pushed. Maybe the one who stood at the bottom of the stairs and watched. I couldn't keep this to myself. I needed help. Someone who knew me. Someone who wouldn't think I was losing my mind. I called Grace, my neighbor of nearly 30 years. She was the one who brought me soup when Michael died, who sat with me in the dark when the funeral ended and the silence took over. The phone rang twice. Eleanora? Her voice was groggy. Are you okay? It's 6 in the morning. Grace. I need you to come over. Now. There was a pause. Then rustling. I'm on my way. 15 minutes later, she arrived wearing pajama pants and a mustard yellow sweater, her gray hair pulled into a lopsided bun. She took one look at my face and didn't say a word. Just followed me inside. I showed her everything. The blanket. The phone. The messages. The photos. Every detail spilled out of me like water bursting through a broken dam. I couldn't stop once I started. Grace listened in silence, her face going from confused to horrified to pale. When I finished, she whispered, Eleanora, this is evidence. Real evidence. This is a murder confession. You have to go to the police. I nodded slowly, but doubt clawed at me. They'll never believe me. I found the phone in a blanket. In a dumpster. Alicia will say I made it up. Grace sat on the bed beside me, her hands trembling. What if we find out who H is, she said. If we can match the man in the photos to someone in Alicia's life, someone real, it gives you more to stand on. It was a small hope, but I clung to it like a lifeline. We opened Alicia's public Facebook profile on my laptop. Grace leaned in close, scrolling with me through her posts. Photos of Isla. Quotes about self-care. Smile after smile, like she hadn't burned a world to the ground behind that perfect image. I clicked friends. Too many names. Too many faces. But Grace, brilliant Grace, whispered, filter by men. Look for names starting with H. We typed in H. 5 profiles popped up: Harold, Hugh, Howard, Hector, Henry. I clicked each one, searching for him, the man in the photos from the phone. The man who had watched Alicia destroy my son's life. And then we found him. Hugh Mason. Profile picture, him on a construction site, grinning in a white helmet. My heart dropped to my stomach. It was him. Same eyes. Same jawline. The man from the restaurant. The hotel. The couch. That's him, I whispered, my throat raw. Grace squeezed my hand. We've got him. Now we know who he is. I opened a new tab and searched his name. Hugh Mason. 38. Construction site supervisor. Lives 10 minutes from Alicia. He was real. He was close. He was walking free. And he helped her kill my son. But the next secret we found wasn't about Alicia or Michael, it was about Isla, and it shattered what little I thought I knew about my granddaughter. I stared at Hugh Mason's profile, my chest tightening with each passing second. Grace sat beside me, barely breathing. There was something vile about seeing his face online, smiling as if he hadn't helped destroy my family, like he wasn't soaked in my son's blood. This man, I whispered, bile rising in my throat. He planned it with her. He was in our lives. And we never even knew. Grace nodded, her jaw clenched. We need more. If the police are going to take this seriously, we have to find something they can't ignore. That's when we thought of it. Isla. My granddaughter. My reason for breathing. What if Alicia kept more secrets? Grace asked quietly. What if Isla, what if there's something else Alicia lied about? My heart skipped. I didn't want to go there. Isla was my light, the last piece of Michael I had left. But Grace was right. If Alicia could fake love, fake grief, fake innocence, she could fake anything. We started searching through Alicia's home records, what we could find publicly. And then we struck something strange. Buried in a filing database of public documents was a birth certificate. Isla's. I clicked it. My hands went cold. Mother's name, Lena Torres. Father, unlisted. No. That couldn't be right. The mother wasn't Alicia. The document had an official seal. It wasn't forged. It was dated 2 months earlier than when Alicia claimed she gave birth. My stomach flipped. Eleanora, Grace said slowly. Isla isn't Alicia's daughter. No. That's not, she was pregnant. I saw her belly, I saw the photos. She faked it. The words felt like acid. But it all made sense now, the quiet baby shower, the way she never let me come to doctor appointments, how she disappeared from photos for months and suddenly re-emerged with Isla in her arms. I covered my mouth. Tears stunned my eyes. She stole that child. We both stared at the screen, stunned, hollow. Who's Lena Torres? Grace whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My fingers were already typing her name. The search engine spun. An article popped up from a small local newspaper, for years old. The headline twisted my gut like a knife. Young woman missing, family desperately seeks Lena Torres. Her photo was right there. She was 23. Beautiful. Wide, gentle eyes. Long black hair. She looked fragile and kind. According to the article, she had disappeared 2 months after giving birth to a baby girl. Her family believed she had been suffering postpartum depression, but something about her vanishing never made sense. "She's Isla's biological mother," I whispered. The room was dead silent. And then Grace asked what I hadn't dared to think. "Do you think Alicia killed her?" I gasped. I physically gasped. It made too much sense. She needed a baby to secure Michael, to complete her fairy tale, to cement her place in his life. And if Lena had no family, no power, no money, she was disposable. I kept digging, rage fueling my fingers. Then I saw it. Another article, 6 months old. Remains found identified as missing woman Lena Torres. She had been found in an abandoned construction lot outside the city. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. No suspects. No arrests. Case closed. But I didn't need a detective to tell me what had happened. Lena was dead. She had been murdered. Just like Michael. Just like someone else. The realization hit me like thunder. Isla wasn't my blood. But she was still mine. She had been loved by my son. She had been cherished. And she had been stolen. From another mother. From 2 parents. From the only life she was meant to have. I stood up. My knees buckled. I held onto the edge of the dresser. Alicia was a monster. And I had handed her my son. I had trusted her. Welcomed her. Praised her. She'd taken Michael's heart, Lena's child, and crushed everything in her path. But I wasn't going to sit by anymore. Grace gripped my hand. "We need to go to the police. Now." I nodded, numb, destroyed, but focused. "I'm going to protect that little girl," I said, voice cracking. "No matter what it takes." But the fight for justice was only beginning, and when we finally stepped into the police station, I had no idea that uncovering the truth would make me question everyone, including the man meant to protect us. We arrived at the precinct just after 9 a.m. The building loomed cold and gray under a cloudy sky, the kind that makes everything feel heavier. I clutched the evidence folder to my chest, the phone, the printed photos, the birth certificate, the newspaper clippings. It felt like I was carrying the weight of the dead. Grace walked beside me, silent, but strong. She was my anchor now. At the front desk, I told the receptionist everything in one breath: Michael's suspicious death, the secret phone, the real mother, the affair, the evidence. She stared at me for a long second and then said quietly, "Please wait here." A few minutes later, a man appeared, tall, early 40s, with sharp eyes and sleeves rolled up like he didn't have time for nonsense. "Mrs. Eleanora Stone?" I nodded. "Yes. I'm Detective James Rowan. Come with me." We followed him into a small office lined with filing cabinets and old case photos. It smelled faintly of coffee and floor wax. He gestured to 2 chairs. "Start from the beginning," he said, pulling out a notepad. "And don't leave anything out." I opened the folder. And I began to speak. I told him about that day, seeing Alicia throw the blanket away. Finding the phone. The messages. The affair. The plan. I showed him the texts. The gallery. The voice notes. The time-stamped entry. Tuesday. 3 p.m. He'll be alone. It has to look like an accident. He leaned forward slightly at that. I continued, my voice shaking. I showed him Isla's birth certificate. How Alicia had faked a pregnancy. How Lena Torres had disappeared. How her body was found with blunt force trauma, the same kind Michael had. He said nothing. Just wrote. Grace added what she had helped find. Hugh Mason's identity. His connection to Alicia. Their relationship, the money transfers. Finally, I slid over the last paper, proof of a $500,000 life insurance policy Michael had taken out, with Alicia as the sole beneficiary. Detective Rowan stared at the paper, unmoving. Then he looked up at me. His voice was low. This is serious. Very serious. You may have just handed me evidence of 2 murders. I didn't breathe. 3, he added. Possibly more. The room tilted. He continued, calm but urgent. First, I'm going to reopen your son's case. We'll request an exhumation and order a second autopsy. I'm going to look into Lena Torres's murder. I'll also pull every financial and phone record on Alicia Wilson and Hugh Mason. Grace gripped my arm tightly. Detective, I whispered, barely able to speak, and Isla? She's still with Alicia, he said carefully. And right now, Alicia is legally her guardian. We can't remove the child without a court order, or a clear and immediate threat. But she's a murderer, I snapped. Allegedly, he corrected, his tone firm. Until we prove it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip down the walls. I can't let her stay there. I won't. He sighed. Then help me prove it. Every message, every file. Anything that shows premeditation, that's what I need. I leaned in, tears starting again. She's not just dangerous, detective. She's methodical. She's cold. She's been getting away with it for years. And she's going to keep going if we don't stop her. He nodded slowly. Then let's stop her. He gave me his card. This is my direct line. Call me if she makes a move. I stood, my legs weak. But there was something electric beneath the grief now. A flicker of purpose. Of fight. Of war. As we left the station, the sky had turned dark. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Grace looked at me, her eyes fierce. You ready? She asked. I looked toward the horizon. I was born ready. But just when we thought we were turning the tide, Alicia made a move none of us saw coming, one that would risk everything, including Isla's life. The storm rolled in that night, and with it came something worse than thunder. Alicia knew. She had found out, somehow, some way. Maybe she saw me digging through the trash. Maybe she noticed the blanket was gone. Maybe she checked the hidden phone and realized it had vanished. Or maybe she just sensed the walls closing in. I got the call at 2:17 a.m. Not from the police. From Isla. At first, I thought it was a dream. Her name flashing on my phone. But when I answered, all I heard was a soft, shaking whisper. Nana, help. My blood ran cold. Isla? I gasped. Sweetheart? Where are you? She sniffled. Mommy is really mad. She told me to pack a bag. We're going on a long trip. She says we're not coming back. I sat bolt upright, grabbing my coat and keys without thinking. Where are you right now? Closet. I snuck her phone. She's yelling downstairs. Grace was already awake, meeting me at the front door as I flew out of the bedroom. She knows, I said breathlessly. Alicia knows. She's running. We jumped into my car and I called Detective Rowan on the way. Straight to voicemail. I left a message, fast, frantic, sharp. She's leaving town. With Isla. Right now. She knows we went to you. Stop her. It was pouring by the time we pulled up to Alicia's house. The lights were out, but the garage was open. I slammed on the brakes and jumped out, the rain drenching me instantly. The front door was unlocked. The inside of the house looked like it had been torn apart. Drawers open. Suitcases on the floor. Empty hangers. Food wrappers. A baby doll discarded near the stairs. Then I heard footsteps. Running. Upstairs. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heart slamming against my chest like it wanted to escape. Isla! I cried out. From behind the guest room door, I heard a small gasp. I threw it open. She was there. Curled in the corner of the closet, arms around her knees, her little face blotchy from crying. I dropped to my knees and pulled her into my arms. "I've got you," I whispered. "Nana's here. I've got you, baby. I've got you." That's when I heard Alicia's voice from the hallway. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I turned slowly. She stood there, barefoot, mascara streaked down her face, keys in one hand, and in the other, something glinting. A kitchen knife. Grace appeared behind me, frozen in the doorway. "You think you can just take her?" Alicia spat. "You've always wanted to ruin me. Jealous old witch. I know you've been snooping. You have no proof. No case. Nothing that can stick." I stood, shielding Isla behind me. "You murdered my son," I said, my voice low and shaking. "You stole this child. And you're not going anywhere." She laughed. "You think the police are going to believe some grieving old hag who dumpster dives and plays Nancy Drew?" I didn't answer. I just stared at her, really looked at her. And I saw it. The cracks. The fear. The unraveling mask. Then headlights beamed through the window. A car screeched to a stop in the driveway. Doors slammed. Footsteps pounded up the porch. Detective Rowan burst through the door, gun drawn. "Drop the knife, Alicia." She spun, startled, just for a second, and Grace lunged. She tackled Alicia from the side, the knife skidding across the hallway as they collapsed to the floor. The detective pinned her down in seconds, handcuffing her with sharp, cold clicks. Alicia screamed. Cursed. Spit like a rabid animal. But I didn't hear her. I only heard Isla, sobbing in my arms. "I want to go home," she whispered. "You are home," I told her, tears finally falling. "You're safe now." Detective Rowan stood, hauling Alicia to her feet. "She's being charged," he said. "Multiple counts. Murder. Fraud. Kidnapping." I nodded. "You found what you needed?" He held up the phone, my phone. "We traced the signal when you left the voicemail. It was enough to get the warrant. We found everything." Alicia glared at me one last time. "You think you've won? You don't even know the whole story." I stepped closer. "You're right," I said coldly. "I only know the truth." But Alicia's final words haunted me, because when I finally opened the last message buried deep inside that phone, I realized there was one more betrayal left. And it came from the last person I ever expected. Alicia was gone. The house was quiet again, almost too quiet. I had Isla tucked into bed in the guest room, wrapped in clean sheets and one of Michael's old t-shirts. She had cried herself to sleep in my arms, holding tight to the stuffed elephant he gave her on her 2nd birthday. Grace sat beside me at the kitchen table. Her hands were still shaking slightly, but her voice was steady. "It's over," she whispered. "She's in custody. Isla's safe. You did it." But I wasn't celebrating. Because Alicia's final words still echoed in my head. "You think you've won? You don't even know the whole story." She hadn't said it like a threat. She'd said it like a promise. The detective left me a copy of the phone's data, and I hadn't been able to stop myself from going back through it, this time, slower. Every message, every photo. I needed to be sure. I needed to know the whole story. And then I found it. A hidden folder, buried deep inside the Notes app, protected with a simple password. It was dated 6 months before Michael's death. The password? Isla. My hands trembled as the folder opened. Inside were logs, long, chilling logs of conversations between Alicia and someone who wasn't H. These weren't romantic. They were methodical, businesslike. Each entry began with JR. I stared at the initials, confused at first. And then my blood turned to ice. J.R. James Rowan. Detective James Rowan. I scrolled, my hands shaking, my mind screaming. The first message. He suspects. You need to slow down. If he gets wise, I can't protect you. J.R. Another. Tell him it was an accident. He has no proof. If you're careful, I can help keep it buried. And then. You're not doing this for me. You're doing it for you. You've wanted this for years. You said it yourself, his mother is the problem. He was never going to leave her. Now she's out. I stared at the words. I couldn't breathe. Detective James Rowan, the man who'd promised justice, who looked me in the eye, who said he'd reopen the case, he was in on it. He was part of it. I kept reading. After this, you're done. No contact. No more calls. If I go down, you go down with me. And then the last entry. Delete these. Now. He had been helping Alicia cover it up. Maybe more than that. Maybe he'd helped plan it. Maybe he was the one who made sure the first autopsy missed everything. Maybe he got to Lena's case and buried it before anyone could ask questions. It all made sense now. Why Michael's case was closed so quickly. Why no one followed up. Why the pieces never fit. He'd been protecting her. Protecting himself. My mind reeled. I looked across the table at Grace, my face pale. It was Rowan, I whispered. She blinked. What? He helped her. He knew. He told her what to say. He made it look like an accident. He manipulated me, and he's still walking free. Grace stared at me in horror. I backed away from the table. I have to call someone. A real investigator. Internal affairs. Someone outside the precinct. I looked down at Isla's toy elephant on the floor, half hidden beneath the chair. This wasn't over. This was bigger than Alicia. Bigger than Hugh. It went all the way through the system. The people who were supposed to protect us were the ones who destroyed us. And just when I thought the nightmare couldn't go any deeper, I found one more message, one that revealed the real reason Michael had to die. One that changed everything I thought I knew about him. The rain had stopped by morning, but inside me, the storm raged louder than ever. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by Isla's door, keeping watch like a soldier at the gate. Not out of fear Alicia would come back, she wouldn't. But because I'd uncovered something darker, Detective Rowan was part of the cover-up. But even that wasn't the end. One message remained, a note I hadn't opened. It wasn't part of any folder. It had no label, no sender. Just a date, 1 week before Michael's death, and a file attachment titled simply, Play Me. A video. My hands trembled as I tapped it. The screen lit up. And there he was. Michael. My son. Alive, breathing, his eyes tired but clear. He was sitting in his car, the one he used for late-night drives when he couldn't sleep. He always said the silence helped him think. But this time, he wasn't thinking. He was recording a confession. "Hey, Mom," he said softly. My breath caught. He looked straight into the camera, and for a moment, it felt like he was right there, sitting across from me. "I don't know if you'll ever see this. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe I've just been working too many night shifts and I'm losing my mind. But if something happens to me, if I die suddenly, this wasn't an accident." He ran his hands through his hair. I've been watching Alicia. 4 months. She's been lying to me. Disappearing. And I thought maybe I was just being insecure, but then I found messages on her tablet. From someone named H. They were talking about me. About how I'm in the way. I clutched the edge of the table. My nails digging into the wood. She's cheating. I know that now. But it's more than that. They're planning something. I think they want me gone. And the worst part is, I can't go to the police. Because the guy she's been meeting with? He's not just her lover. He's connected. He knows people. Michael paused. He leaned closer. And there's more. His voice dropped. There's something I never told you. About Isla. I stopped breathing. Michael swallowed hard, staring into the camera like he was choosing each word like a loaded bullet. I found a letter. Hidden in Alicia's nightstand. It wasn't meant for me. It was from someone named Lena. She was begging Alicia to give Isla back. Begging her not to hurt her. It broke me. I confronted Alicia. She said Lena was unfit, that she rescued Isla from a bad situation. But something in her eyes. He shook his head. She didn't rescue anyone. She took her. The screen shook for a moment as Michael reached for something, a folded piece of paper. He held it up. The camera zoomed in enough to read the first line. "Please, I'm her real mother. You can't just take her away. I'll do anything. Just let me see her. Lena." Michael looked back at the camera, his eyes glistening. I was going to report her. I was going to file a custody claim and go to the police. But that's when everything started happening. My brakes failed last week. Almost drove into a ditch. The doctor said my last food poisoning episode was unusual. I know she's doing it, Mom. I know she is. He took a shaky breath. I don't know if I'll make it to the end of the week. The last thing he said was barely a whisper. Tell Isla I love her. Tell her I tried. The video ended. And I collapsed. There are moments in life that split your soul, and that was mine. My son had seen it coming. He'd tried to stop it. And no one listened. Not even me. Grace sat beside me, tears streaming silently. We didn't speak for a long time. We didn't need to. The final truth had settled. Michael was not a victim of blind fate. He was silenced for protecting a little girl that wasn't even his by blood, but was fully his by love. He died trying to do the right thing. To stop a crime no one believed had happened. To save a child stolen from her mother, and to expose the woman he once trusted with his life. And now, it was my turn. Michael had passed me the torch, not with words, but with truth. And I would burn every lie to the ground to finish what he started. Michael's video played again in my head on a loop, his voice, raw and trembling, the way he said, "Tell her I tried." It wasn't just a warning. It was a mission. And now that mission belonged to me. The next morning, I walked into the police station with a calm I didn't recognize. Grace came with me, steady as ever. Isla stayed with a trusted neighbor, safe and warm, unaware of the war her family had buried beneath her birth. Detective Rowan wasn't at his desk. He wasn't anywhere. I handed the front desk officer a sealed envelope. Inside, the phone. The printed screenshots. The DNA results. And now, the video. I looked the officer dead in the eye. This needs to go directly to internal affairs. No detours. No lost files. No excuses. The young woman hesitated. Ma'am, It contains evidence implicating Detective James Rowan in a homicide cover-up and obstruction of justice, I said flatly. If it disappears, I will go to every news station in the state and tell them you buried the death of an innocent man. Her face went pale. I'll log it immediately. Good. I left without looking back. That night, Grace and I stayed up at the kitchen table, the same table Michael built for me when he was 17, his proud smile forever etched in my memory. We made lists. Calls. Filed online reports. I contacted 3 journalists, all local. One of them called me back within the hour. Her name was Lena Quinn, no relation to Lena Torres. Just fate's cruel echo. I told her everything. And when I showed her Michael's video, her face changed. She whispered, he was right. No one listened. I nodded. But now, I said, they will. 3 days later, the story broke. Mother uncovers murder plot in son's death, detective implicated. The article exploded online. Michael's photo was everywhere. The boy with the bright eyes and the kind smile. The man who died saving a child he had no obligation to protect, except through love. By the end of the day, Detective James Rowan was suspended pending a full investigation. And Alicia? She was no longer just a bitter widow in mourning. She was a suspect in 2 murders, an accessory to kidnapping, and the subject of a national custody battle. And I was done crying. 2 weeks later, I sat in the family court waiting room with Isla's tiny hand in mine. She had no idea what the hearing was about. Just that Nana's fighting for me. She looked up at me and whispered, "Do I get to stay with you forever now?" I squeezed her hand and nodded, even though my heart ached at what was to come. The judge called our name. Inside, my lawyer laid it out clean and sharp. Proof of Alicia's crimes. Evidence of Isla's true parentage. Lena's letter, found by Michael. And a DNA test confirming Isla wasn't biologically related to either Alicia or Michael, but did match Lena's surviving sister, who had since signed guardianship rights over to me. Because I was the only mother Isla had left now. When the gavel fell, the courtroom was silent. The judge looked at me. "Eleanora Stone, full guardianship is awarded to you. Effective immediately." My breath escaped me. Isla squeezed my hand. We walked out of that courtroom into sunlight. I took her to the park that afternoon. She ran through the leaves barefoot, laughing, her curls bouncing in the breeze. For the first time in months, she looked free. Not borrowed. Not hidden. Herself. She ran back and climbed into my lap. "Nana?" "Yes, sweetheart?" She smiled. "My daddy's in heaven, right?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, baby. He is." She looked up. "Do you think he sees me?" I held her tight. "He sees everything. And he's so proud of you." She nestled into my arms and whispered, "I miss him." "I do too." And though the trials would still come, though the courtroom battles and media firestorms were just beginning, one thing was certain, my son didn't die in vain. And now, with Isla safe, I would make sure everyone who had a hand in his death answered for it. Because I wasn't just a grieving mother anymore. I was a storm, and justice was only the beginning. Epilogue, Echoes and Ashes. 3 months later, the courtroom was full, not of mourners this time, but of witnesses. Journalists scribbled in notepads. Cameras clicked. And behind the defense table, Alicia sat in silence, her once perfect hair dull and her posture small. There were no designer heels today. Just county-issued grays and the weight of consequences. I sat in the front row, Isla beside me, her small hand in mine, her head tucked into my shoulder. She didn't need to see it all. But I wanted her to know, monsters get cages, not crowns. The prosecution spoke first. Calm. Clinical. Your Honor, this is a woman who orchestrated the murder of her husband, fraudulently obtained a child, and conspired with a corrupt officer of the law to cover up both crimes. She is manipulative, remorseless, and profoundly dangerous. They played the video, Michael's confession. The jury watched in stunned silence. One juror cried. When the defense stood up, they tried to spin it. Claimed Alicia had been emotionally manipulated by Hugh Mason, that she wasn't in her right mind. But no one believed it. Because truth, when spoken from the dead, cuts through even the best rehearsed lies. Hugh Mason had already taken a plea deal. 15 years for conspiracy to commit murder. He testified. So did Detective Rowan, in cuffs. He was stripped of his badge, tried separately, and sentenced to 22 years for obstruction, corruption, and falsifying evidence. Justice was slow. But it came. Sentencing day. The judge looked down at Alicia. Ms. Wilson, you have committed crimes that not only destroyed a family but robbed a child of her father, a mother of her son, and a young woman of her life. For murder in the first degree, kidnapping, and conspiracy, I hereby sentence you to life in prison without parole. The gavel cracked. Alicia didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just looked back at me. One last time. And I held her gaze, not with anger. With finality. Years later. The house is quiet now. Not the lonely kind, the peaceful kind. Isla is 11. She has Michael's eyes and his heart, brave, curious, always asking questions that make you pause before answering. She calls me Mom Nana now. I never asked her to. She just started saying it one day. I took her to visit Lena Torres's grave last year. We laid flowers. Told her story. Said her name out loud so she'd never be forgotten. So Isla would know the whole truth, not just the pretty parts. Because she's old enough now to understand this, love doesn't always come from where we expect. And sometimes, the people who fight hardest for us aren't the ones who gave us life. They're the ones who refuse to let us be forgotten. At night, sometimes, Isla still asks for one story before bed, always the same one. Tell me about Daddy again. And I do. I tell her about how he once built a bookshelf without instructions. How he danced like a fool in the kitchen when no one was looking. How he cried when he first held her. How he died trying to protect her from a lie, and how he'd do it all over again in a heartbeat. She always falls asleep with a smile. And every time I whisper the same words before I leave her room. You are loved. You are safe. You are free. Because Michael's story didn't end with death. It ended with her life. And I carry that fire, always.